Imagine for a moment that everything went wrong in the Chamber of Secrets. Picture Harry Potter, 12 years old, lying on the cold stone floor as the basilisk's fang pierces his arm. The venom courses through his veins, burning like liquid fire. But this time, Fawkes doesn't arrive. There's no phoenix tears, no miraculous healing, no last-minute salvation. Harry James Potter, the boy who lived, dies in the darkness beneath Hogwarts, and with him, the entire fate of the wizarding world changes forever. This is the story of what happens next, when the prophecy remains unfulfilled, and Voldemort's greatest enemy is eliminated before the real war even begins. This is a timeline where hope dies in a chamber of secrets, and darkness spreads across Britain like an unstoppable plague. Let's start at the very moment of Harry's death. Tom Riddle's memory, preserved in that cursed diary, watches with triumph as the boy collapses. The basilisk towers over Harry's body, its massive serpentine form coiled in the shadows. Ginny Weasley lies unconscious nearby, her life force still draining into the diary. With Harry gone, there's no one to destroy the diary with the basilisk fang. No one to save Ginny. No one to stop Tom Riddle from returning. The memory grows stronger, more solid, more real with each passing moment. Ginny grows paler, her breathing shallower. The diary pulses with dark magic, feeding on her life force without interruption. Within the hour, Ginny Weasley is dead, and Tom Riddle is reborn, not as the weak, half-alive wraith he would have been in the fourth year, but as a teenage manifestation with a physical body, albeit temporary. He's not at full power, not yet, but he's corporeal, he's dangerous, and he's free. Riddle examines Harry's body with cold satisfaction. The boy who was prophesied to defeat him lies dead at his feet. He pockets his own diary, the Horcrux that brought him back, and considers his next move. The basilisk obeys his every command. He's inside Hogwarts, where Dumbledore's defenses are strongest, but also where secrets run deep and opportunities abound. Meanwhile, above in the castle, panic is beginning to set in. Harry and Ron took Lockhart to find the chamber hours ago. None of them have returned. Hermione is still petrified in the hospital wing. McGonagall is organizing search parties. Dumbledore has returned from his forced removal by the Board of Governors, and the moment he steps into Hogwarts, he knows something is terribly wrong. The ancient magic of the castle itself seems to whisper warnings. Ron Weasley is the first to be found. He's trapped behind the cave-in caused by Lockhart's backfiring memory charm, frantically trying to dig through the rubble. When the professors finally reach him, he's sobbing, his hands bloody from clawing at stone. He tells them everything. Harry went ahead alone. Ginny is in the chamber. There's a monster. Hours have passed with no word, no sound, nothing. Dumbledore's face, usually so calm and controlled, shows a flicker of true fear. He knows the stories of the chamber, knows what creature lurks within. He leads a team of professors through the tunnels, through the cave-in that Ron indicated, past Lockhart, who's babbling incomprehensibly with his shattered mind, and finally to the great circular door with its serpent mechanisms. Dumbledore speaks Parseltongue, one of his many secrets, learned through years of study and magic. The door opens. They descend into the Chamber of Secrets, wands raised, hearts pounding. And there, in that vast stone hall with Slytherin's face carved into the far wall, they find a scene of absolute horror. Harry Potter lies motionless, his skin pale and waxy, the basilisk fang wound in his arm black with venom. Ginny Weasley is beside him, equally still, her red hair spread around her like blood. The diary lies between them, and there is no sign of any attacker, no sign of the basilisk, no sign of Tom Riddle. He's already gone, escaped into the depths of the castle or beyond, taking the monster with him through passages even Dumbledore doesn't know. McGonagall's scream echoes through the chamber. Dumbledore rushes forward, his wand already moving through diagnostic spells, but he knows before he begins what he'll find. They're both gone. Harry dead from basilisk venom, Ginny drained of her life force. Two children, dead in the depths of Hogwarts, killed by a danger he failed to prevent. The headmaster picks up the diary with trembling hands. He recognizes it immediately for what it is. Dark magic, the darkest kind. Piece of soul, a Horcrux. His worst fears about Tom Riddle are confirmed in this moment. Voldemort didn't just seek immortality through one Horcrux. He created multiple, and one of them just murdered 2 students and potentially brought its creator back to some form of life. The news spreads through Hogwarts like wildfire. Students are sent home immediately. The school year is cancelled. The Ministry of Magic descends upon the castle in force. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, arrives with a team of Aurors, already preparing his spin on the tragedy to minimize his own political liability. But nothing can minimize the impact of what's happened. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the symbol of hope for the entire wizarding world, is dead at 12 years old. Killed not in some grand battle, but in a dark chamber beneath a school, murdered by a memory and a monster. The photographs in the Daily Prophet show Dumbledore's haunted face, McGonagall's tears, the Weasley family absolutely shattered by grief. Arthur and Molly Weasley have lost their only daughter. Their grief is incomprehensible. Ron blames himself for not going with Harry, for not being there, for surviving when his best friend and sister didn't. Fred and George stop joking. Percy becomes hollow. Bill and Charlie return home to find their family destroyed. The burrow, once filled with warmth and laughter, becomes a place of ghosts and guilt. Hermione Granger wakes from her petrification to learn that her best friend is dead. The girl who always had an answer, who could solve any problem with enough research and cleverness, is confronted with the brutal reality that some things can't be fixed. Some people don't come back. She throws herself into her studies with even more intensity, but now there's a desperate edge to it. A frantic need to be prepared, to be strong enough, because she wasn't there when it mattered. The Dursleys are notified of Harry's death. Petunia's reaction is complicated, a mixture of relief that the abnormality is gone from her life, guilt over that relief, and a deep buried grief for her sister's son. Vernon is simply relieved. Dudley surprisingly seems disturbed. He'd tormented Harry for years, but the permanence of death affects even him. But the most significant reaction comes from Sirius Black, still imprisoned in Azkaban. He learns through the prison's whisper network that Harry is dead. His godson, the last piece of James and Lily, gone. Something breaks in Sirius that day. The thin thread of sanity he'd been clinging to snaps. He doesn't escape Azkaban in this timeline. He has no reason to. Peter Pettigrew is still hiding as Scabbers with the Weasleys, still safe, still free. Sirius simply gives up, lets the Dementors have what's left of his mind. Within a year, he's dead too. At Hogwarts, Dumbledore examines the diary with obsessive focus. He recognizes the Horcrux for what it is, understands now that Voldemort's defeat in 1981 was never complete. The Dark Lord made fail-safes, multiple pieces of his soul hidden away. Harry's death means no one fulfilled the prophecy. No one marked as his equal. No one with power the Dark Lord knows not. Dumbledore realizes he never told Harry about the prophecy, never prepared him for his destiny, and now that destiny will go unfulfilled. The old wizard ages visibly in the weeks following the tragedy. His greatest failure, his inability to protect a child placed in his care, weighs on him like a physical burden. He begins researching Horcruxes in earnest, breaking into the restricted section of his own library, calling in favors from contacts across the world. He needs to understand how many Voldemort made, where they might be hidden, how to destroy them. But this research is desperately slow. Horcruxes are the darkest of dark magic, information about them deliberately obscured and protected. Meanwhile, Tom Riddle's memory, now possessing a teenage body sustained by Ginny's stolen life force, is on the move. He's not at full strength, not yet the terrifying Dark Lord who brought Britain to its knees, but he's clever, patient, and utterly ruthless. He knows this body is temporary, knows he needs to reunite with his other self, the Wraith that's been hiding since 1981. Riddle makes his way to Albania, using the basilisk as his weapon and guardian. The great serpent, freed from centuries in the chamber, follows its master through the countryside, leaving a trail of mysterious deaths. The Ministry of Magic in Britain is aware something is wrong, but they don't connect these distant events to the tragedy at Hogwarts. In the Albanian forests, Riddle finds what remains of Voldemort, the fragment of soul that possessed Quirrell 2 years ago before being thwarted by Harry Potter. The Wraith is weak, barely conscious, surviving on the life force of small animals. The meeting between the memory and the remnant is bizarre. Two pieces of the same soul, one with a body stolen from a child's life, one without any physical form at all. They merge, or rather, the wraith possesses the body Riddle has created. Voldemort is reborn, not at full power but far stronger than he was. He has physical form again. He has the basilisk, and his greatest enemy is already dead. The Dark Lord's laugh echoes through the Albanian wilderness, a sound of pure malicious triumph. Back in Britain, the summer of 1993 is marked by unprecedented tension. The ministry is in chaos. Fudge is desperately trying to maintain order, but rumors are spreading. Dark Mark sightings increase. Death Eaters who escaped Azkaban, who claimed they were under the Imperius curse, begin disappearing from their homes, returning to their master. Lucius Malfoy is among the first. Malfoy is terrified when he's summoned. He thought himself free, thought Voldemort gone forever. The diary was supposed to open the chamber, eliminate Muggleborns, discredit Arthur Weasley, nothing more. He never imagined it would actually bring the Dark Lord back. When he arrives at the meeting place, a ruined castle in Eastern Europe, and sees Voldemort alive with the basilisk coiled beside him, Malfoy realizes he's made a terrible mistake. Voldemort punishes him brutally with the Cruciatus curse for losing the diary for the carelessness that led to its discovery. But he doesn't kill Malfoy. He needs his followers, needs their money, their influence, their connections. The Death Eaters are being reassembled, but this time with more caution. Voldemort has learned from his previous defeat. He won't move openly until he's ready. The Dark Lord's first priority is restoring himself to full power. The body sustained by Ginny's life force is temporary, already beginning to deteriorate. He needs the ritual, the one that will be performed a year later in the original timeline. Bone of the father, flesh of the servant, blood of the enemy. But there's a problem. The ritual specifically required Harry Potter's blood, the blood of the one who survived his killing curse, marked as his equal. Harry is dead. Voldemort needs a substitute. He researches alternatives, dark rituals that could achieve the same result. He learns of ancient magic that could use the blood of someone else who bears his mark, who carries a piece of him. He realizes with cold calculation that there's another option. Neville Longbottom. The prophecy, as Dumbledore knows it, could have applied to either Harry or Neville, both born at the end of July to parents who defied Voldemort 3 times. Voldemort chose Harry, marked him as his equal. But Neville was the other possibility. His blood might work, might carry enough connection to the prophecy and to Voldemort's failed curse to complete the ritual. Voldemort begins planning Neville's abduction. But he's patient. He spends the next year gathering strength, recruiting followers, and preparing. He knows Dumbledore will be on high alert after Harry's death. He knows the Ministry, incompetent as they are, will have increased security. He waits. At Hogwarts, the 1993-1994 school year begins under a cloud of grief. Many parents almost didn't send their children back. Only Dumbledore's personal assurances and increased security measures convinced them. The school feels different, emptier somehow, even with all the students present. Gryffindor Tower has a new first year in what would have been Harry's dormitory. The Quidditch team has a new seeker, but everyone remembers. Ron Weasley returns as a different person. The cheerful, sometimes lazy boy is gone. He's quieter, more serious, prone to angry outbursts. He throws himself into defense against the dark arts with an intensity that surprises everyone. He will not be helpless again. He will not lose anyone else because he wasn't strong enough. Hermione becomes even more of a know-it-all. But now it's born from fear rather than just intellectual curiosity. She needs to know everything, needs to be prepared for everything, because knowledge is the only armor she has. She and Ron grow closer, bonded by shared grief and guilt. They visit Ginny's empty room at the Burrow together. They talk about Harry late at night in the common room. They're trauma-bonded in a way that's both healing and harmful. Neville Longbottom notices their pain and relates to it. He's lived with loss his entire life. His parents tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange. He becomes friends with Ron and Hermione, and the three of them form a tight unit. Neville is still clumsy, still forgetful, still convinced he's a disappointment to his grandmother, but he has friends now who understand pain. The new defense against the dark arts teacher is Remus Lupin, just as in the original timeline. Dumbledore hired him deliberately, needing someone he could trust absolutely, someone who would protect the students with their life. Lupin is devastated by Harry's death. James's son, dead before Remus even got to know him. The werewolf throws himself into teaching, determined to prepare these children better than Harry was prepared. Lupin notices something about Neville. Under his tutoring, the boy begins to show real talent. Not spectacular, not like Harry's natural gift for defense, but steady, determined improvement. Neville learns the Patronus charm by Christmas, producing a silver haze that almost takes shape. It's remarkable progress for a third year, but the most significant change comes from Snape. Severus Snape's entire reason for continuing, his redemption arc, his purpose, was protecting Harry Potter as penance for causing Lily's death. With Harry gone, Snape is unmoored. He continues teaching, continues his role, but the fire is gone. He's colder, more bitter, more likely to dock points and assign detentions. Dumbledore watches Snape with concern. He needs his spy, needs Snape's connection to the Death Eaters. When Voldemort calls, when the dark mark burns on Snape's arm again, Dumbledore will need him to answer. But he's not sure Snape will. The man's loyalty was to Lily's memory, and, by extension, to her son. With that gone, what remains? The question is answered in February 1994 when Snape's dark mark does burn for the first time in years. Voldemort is calling his Death Eaters, testing their loyalty. Snape stares at the mark, feels the pull, the command. He goes to Dumbledore's office. The conversation is tense. Dumbledore asks Snape to answer the call, to resume his role as spy. Snape refuses. He's done. He fulfilled his life debt to James Potter by trying to protect Harry. He failed. The debt is paid in failure. He owes nothing more. Dumbledore argues, pleads, reminds Snape of everything at stake. The Dark Lord is back. The war is beginning again. Snape's information could save countless lives, but Snape is immovable. He tells Dumbledore coldly that he'll continue teaching, continue brewing potions, but he will not risk his life spying for a cause he no longer believes in. Without Snape as a spy, Dumbledore loses his best source of intelligence on Voldemort's movements. He's flying blind, trying to track a Dark Lord who's learned to be subtle, who's rebuilding power in the shadows. The Ministry is worse than useless. Fudge refuses to believe Voldemort could truly be back. It's more convenient, more politically expedient, to blame the deaths on dark creatures or rogue Death Eaters acting alone. In June of 1994, Voldemort makes his move. The Tri-Wizard tournament is being planned, just as in the original timeline. Dumbledore pushed for it, hoping that international cooperation might strengthen defenses against the growing darkness. But Voldemort sees opportunity. Barty Crouch Jr. is freed from his father's imperious curse, just as before. He infiltrates Hogwarts as Mad-Eye Moody. But his mission is different. Instead of manipulating Harry Potter through the tournament, his goal is to abduct Neville Longbottom. It's almost too easy. Neville isn't famous, isn't watched, isn't protected the way Harry was. During a school trip to Hogsmeade, Crouch stuns Neville in an alley and portkeys him directly to a graveyard where Voldemort waits. The boy disappears. By the time anyone notices he's missing, it's far too late. In the Little Hangleton graveyard, Neville Longbottom wakes tied to Tom Riddle Sr.'s gravestone. Voldemort stands before him, wand raised. Peter Pettigrew is there, whimpering but obedient. The cauldron is prepared. The ritual begins, bone of the father unknowingly given. Riddle Sr.'s grave splits open. A rib bone flies into the cauldron. Flesh of the servant willingly sacrificed. Pettigrew slices off his hand, screaming. Blood of the enemy, forcibly taken. Voldemort cuts Neville's arm, lets the blood pour into the potion. The ritual works. Perhaps not as perfectly as it would have with Harry's blood, but well enough. Voldemort emerges from the cauldron in a new body, fully corporeal, fully powered. He's returned. The Dark Lord rises, tests his new form, and laughs. Neville, barely conscious, watches in horror. Voldemort considers killing the boy. But he's curious. Why did the ritual work with Longbottom's blood? He performs legilimency on Neville's undefended mind, rifling through his memories. He learns about the prophecy, about how it could have referred to either Harry or Neville. He learns that Neville's parents were tortured by Bellatrix. He learns that this frightened, mediocre boy is no threat at all. So Voldemort makes a different choice. He doesn't kill Neville. Instead, he uses him. He performs a modification of the Imperious Curse, something more subtle, more long-lasting. He sends Neville back to Hogwarts with false memories of escaping his kidnappers, with a compulsion buried deep in his mind. Neville Longbottom is now Voldemort's unwitting spy in Hogwarts, his eyes and ears ready to be activated with a code phrase. Neville returns confused, traumatized, barely able to explain what happened. He was grabbed, he escaped, he can't remember clearly. Dumbledore performs every diagnostic spell he knows. He finds no trace of the Imperious Curse, no dark magic. He has no idea Neville is compromised. Neville himself doesn't know. The compulsion is buried beneath layers of protective charms that make it invisible to standard detection. With Voldemort fully restored, and Neville acting as an unconscious agent, the balance shifts decisively. The Dark Lord begins his campaign, but differently than before. He doesn't seek open war immediately. Instead, he uses political manipulation, assassinations, fear tactics. Death Eaters infiltrate the Ministry at every level. Fudge is either under Imperius or simply too cowardly to act. The Ministry becomes complicit in the rise of darkness. The Daily Prophet begins running articles questioning Dumbledore's competence. How did 2 students die on his watch? Why hasn't he caught their killer? Perhaps the great Albus Dumbledore is too old, too senile to run Hogwarts. Perhaps he's the real danger. It's a smear campaign orchestrated by Voldemort through his controlled Ministry contacts and through Lucius Malfoy's influence over the media. By the end of 1994, Dumbledore is forced to resign as headmaster. The Board of Governors, pressured by the Ministry and by wealthy families like the Malfoys, votes him out. Dolores Umbridge is appointed headmistress of Hogwarts in early 1995. Umbridge's reign is a nightmare from the start. She dismantles every defense Dumbledore put in place. She fires Lupin, citing the werewolf registry laws. She restricts spell practice in defense against the dark arts. She monitors all student communications. She turns Hogwarts from a sanctuary into a prison. Ron and Hermione try to resist. They form a secret study group, teaching defensive spells to other students. It's a pale echo of what would have been Dumbledore's army. But without Harry's leadership, without his experience, it's less organized, less effective. They name it the Defense Association, meeting in secret to practice stunning spells and disarming charms. But they're discovered. Neville, under his compulsion, reports their activities to Umbridge during one of her routine questioning sessions. He doesn't realize he's doing it, doesn't remember telling her. The compulsion makes him forget the betrayal the moment it happens. The Defense Association is shut down. Ron and Hermione are expelled from Hogwarts. The Weasleys are devastated. They've already lost Ginny. Now Ron is expelled, his education ended, his future uncertain. Hermione's Muggle parents are horrified and confused, unable to understand what their daughter did wrong in a world they barely comprehend. Dumbledore, no longer constrained by his position at Hogwarts, goes on the offensive. He reforms the Order of the Phoenix, calling back old members and recruiting new ones. But it's harder now. So many of his most trusted allies are gone. The Potter's dead. The Longbottom's insane. Sirius Black dead in Azkaban, Snape refusing to spy. The Order is smaller, weaker, less connected. Dumbledore makes Ron and Hermione members of the Order despite their youth. They've proven their commitment, their courage. He trains them personally, pushing them hard, preparing them for the war he knows is coming. Ron discovers he has real talent for tactical thinking, for strategy. Hermione becomes an expert in protective enchantments and ward breaking. They grow into formidable young wizards, shaped by grief into weapons. But even as the Order prepares, Voldemort's influence spreads. Death Eaters move openly now, attacking Muggle and Muggle-born communities. The Ministry does nothing, or worse, actively covers up the attacks. Umbridge passes educational decrees at Hogwarts that restrict teaching about dark creatures, about defensive spells, about anything that might actually help students survive. In the summer of 1995, Voldemort makes his boldest move yet. He attacks the Ministry of Magic directly. Not to take it over, but to steal something. He goes after the prophecy, the full text that he never heard completely, the one that mentioned the power to defeat him. With Harry dead, he needs to know if there's anyone else who might pose a threat. The battle of the Department of Mysteries happens, but differently. There's no Harry to lure, no students to endanger. Instead, it's a direct assault by Death Eaters, including Bellatrix Lestrange. The Order of the Phoenix mobilizes to stop them. The battle is brutal. Spells fly in the Time Room, the Death Chamber, through the Hall of Prophecy where glass spheres explode like bombs. The Order suffers terrible casualties. Kingsley Shacklebolt is killed. Nymphadora Tonks is gravely wounded. And Albus Dumbledore finally faces Voldemort directly in the Ministry atrium. The duel is witnessed by Ministry workers, by Fudge himself. There's no denying the truth anymore. The Dark Lord has returned. The duel is magnificent and terrible. These two greatest wizards of the age, master and student, clash with magic that tears apart the very structure of the Ministry building. But Dumbledore is older now, worn down by stress and grief. Voldemort is at full power. The outcome is inevitable. Dumbledore doesn't die in the duel, but he's defeated, forced to retreat. Voldemort stands in the Ministry atrium and declares himself victorious. Fudge, watching from hiding, finally understands the depths of his failures, but it's too late. Within days, Fudge is dead, killed by Death Eaters. The Ministry falls under Voldemort's complete control. By 1996, Britain's wizarding world is under the Dark Lord's rule. The Ministry is staffed with Death Eaters and Imperious officials. Hogwarts is a propaganda machine under Umbridge's control. Muggleborns are being rounded up. Blood traders are imprisoned or killed. It's everything Voldemort wanted, achieved in a fraction of the time it would have taken if Harry had lived. The Order of the Phoenix becomes a resistance movement, fighting from the shadows. They hide in safe houses under Fidelius charms. They conduct guerrilla raids on Death Eater operations. They smuggle Muggleborns out of Britain to safety abroad. Ron and Hermione, now 19 years old, are among the Order's most effective operatives despite their youth. But they're losing. Slowly, inevitably, they're being ground down. Without the Horcrux knowledge, without understanding Voldemort's true immortality, they can't figure out how to end this. Even if they could somehow kill Voldemort's body again, he'd just return, again and again, until all resistance is crushed. Dumbledore, in hiding, finally shares the secret of Horcruxes with his most trusted Order members. Ron and Hermione learn the terrible truth. Voldemort split his soul into pieces. Destroying his body isn't enough. They need to find and destroy every Horcrux. Only then can he be killed permanently. The hunt begins. Dumbledore has already located some through his research. The ring, hidden in the Gaunt Shack, protected by lethal curses. He retrieves it, but the curse withers his hand, begins killing him slowly. They destroy the ring using Godric Gryffindor's sword, one of the few things that can destroy a Horcrux. The diary was the second, already found in the chamber, though its essence escaped when Riddle reformed. They're not sure if it still counts as a Horcrux, or if destroying the physical diary, while Riddle lived, rendered it inert. They destroy it anyway, using basilisk fangs that Ron and Hermione brave the chamber to retrieve. But the other Horcruxes are mysteries. Dumbledore suspects Hufflepuff's cup, possibly in Bellatrix Lestrange's Gringotts vault, based on intelligence. Something of Ravenclaw's, perhaps. Something of Slytherin's beyond the ring. The locations are guesses, the protections unknown. And Dumbledore is dying, the curse from the ring spreading through his body despite all efforts to slow it. In late 1996, Dumbledore calls Ron and Hermione to his deathbed. He's in a small cottage in Scotland, hidden under every protection the Order could manage. He tells them everything he knows, everything he suspects. He tasks them with the Horcrux hunt. They're young, yes, but they're clever, determined, and most importantly, they're motivated by personal loss. Dumbledore dies in December 1996. The Order of the Phoenix loses its leader, its symbol, its greatest wizard. The funeral is attended by hundreds, held in secret in a remote location. Wizards and witches from around the world come to pay respects. But the mood is somber, hopeless. How can they win without Dumbledore? Ron and Hermione take up the hunt with desperate determination. They plan a break-in at Gringotts, something incredibly dangerous. They need Polyjuice Potion, they need insider information, they need luck. They spend months preparing, gathering ingredients, learning everything they can about the bank's security. The break-in happens in spring 1997. They spend weeks preparing, brewing Polyjuice Potion in a safe house, studying maps of Gringotts that Bill Weasley had secretly copied during his time as a curse breaker there. Bill himself can't help directly. He's being watched by the Ministry. But his information is invaluable. They learn about the thief's downfall, the waterfall that washes away enchantments and disguises. They learn about the security trolls, the dragon, the depth of the vaults. The day of the break-in, Hermione takes Polyjuice to become Bellatrix Lestrange. The transformation is disturbing, wearing the face of the woman who tortured Neville's parents, who killed Sirius Black in the original timeline that never was. Ron uses Polyjuice to become a random goblin employee, his knowledge of goblin culture from Bill's stories, helping him maintain the disguise. They have a third accomplice, an actual Order member named Griphook, a goblin who hates Voldemort's regime and the way it's corrupted Gringotts. Walking into Gringotts as Bellatrix is terrifying. Death Eaters are present, monitoring activity. Ministry officials check identifications. Hermione has to channel Bellatrix's arrogance, her casual cruelty. She snaps at goblins, throws around threats, demands to be taken to her vault immediately. The performance is convincing enough, but there are close calls. A Death Eater named Travers recognizes Bellatrix and approaches to speak with her. Hermione has to improvise, pretending to be in a hurry, using Bellatrix's known paranoia as an excuse to avoid conversation. They descend into the depths of Gringotts on a cart that plunges through winding passages. The thief's downfall is unavoidable. The enchanted waterfall strips away their Polyjuice disguises, revealing them as intruders. Alarms sound immediately. Griphook betrays them, as goblins often do when dealing with wizards, grabbing the sword of Gryffindor they promised him and disappearing into the shadows. They're trapped deep underground with dozens of guards mobilizing above them. But they've made it to Bellatrix's vault. The door bears the Lestrange family crest. Hermione uses every unlocking charm she knows. When magic fails, Ron uses brute force, blasting the hinges with Bombarda. The door falls. Inside the vault is a treasure trove of dark artifacts and stolen wealth. But there's a curse on everything. The Gemino curse, which multiplies objects when touched, and the Flagrante curse, which makes copies burning hot. They navigate carefully using levitation charms, until they spot it. Hufflepuff's cup sitting on a high shelf, gleaming gold. Hermione levitates it carefully. The moment it moves, the curses activate. Objects begin multiplying, filling the vault, burning hot, crushing them with their mass. They grab the cup and run, fighting through an avalanche of cursed treasures. Ron's arms are burned badly. Hermione's robes catch fire. They burst from the vault, barely ahead of being buried alive. The dragon is their only escape route. The ancient Ukrainian Iron Belly, blind from years underground, chained in place to guard the deepest vaults. Hermione makes a split-second decision that's either brilliant or insane. She uses Relatio to break the dragon's chains. The beast, feeling freedom for the first time in decades, goes berserk. It smashes through the caverns, climbing upward, destroying everything in its path. Ron and Hermione leap onto the dragon's back as it rises. They cling to its spines as it crashes through level after level of Gringotts. Stone crumbles. Enchantments shatter. The dragon bursts through the bank's marble floor into the main lobby, scattering customers and goblins. It doesn't stop. It continues upward, through the ceiling into the London sky. They fly over the city on Dragonback, a surreal moment of exhilaration amid their terror. Below, Diagon Alley erupts in chaos. The dragon finally tires over the countryside and begins to descend. They jump off into a lake, letting the dragon fly away to freedom. They're soaked, burned, exhausted, but they have the cup. They destroy it that night in the ruins of an abandoned farmhouse. Ron places the cup on the ground. Hermione drives a basilisk fang through it. The Horcrux screams with Voldemort's voice mixed with Bellatrix's mad laughter. Dark magic pours out like smoke, forming shapes of torture and death before dissipating. The cup crumbles to dust. That's 3 Horcruxes destroyed, but they still don't know how many remain or where to find them. Their hunt leads them to Hogwarts. Hermione's research suggests something of Ravenclaw's might be hidden there. But Hogwarts is now fully under Voldemort's control. Umbridge has been replaced by a Death Eater headmaster. The Carrows, Electo, and Amicus teach students dark magic and cruelty. Students are punished with Cruciatus curses for infractions. It's a school of nightmares. But there's resistance even there. Neville Longbottom, still unknowingly compromised but fighting against his compulsion through sheer force of will, has become a leader of student rebellion. His mind is fractured, part of him trying to resist, part of him forced to report to the Death Eaters, but his courage never breaks. He leads other students in acts of defiance, in protecting younger kids from the Carrows. When Ron and Hermione infiltrate Hogwarts, they meet with Neville secretly. He's changed dramatically. Gone is the clumsy, forgetful boy. He's lean, scarred, his eyes haunted but determined. He tells them about the room where students hide, a room of requirement that appears when needed. He tells them about Luna Lovegood, still at school, still strange but somehow always knowing things. He tells them about Ginny's ghost that students claim to see in the corridors. That last one catches them off guard. Ginny's ghost? Neville nods. Students see her sometimes. A flicker of red hair, a whisper of her voice. She appears to people who are in danger, seems to warn them. It's probably just grief-induced hallucinations or a trick of the light. But Neville wants to believe his sister is still watching over them somehow. Ron breaks down at this. His sister, dead because he couldn't save her. Now a ghost story in the school she died beneath. Hermione holds him as he weeps, as the reality of their losses crashes over him again. Their hunt leads them to Hogwarts. Hermione's research, cross-referencing everything Dumbledore told them with her own knowledge of magical history, suggests that Voldemort would have hidden something at Hogwarts. He loved the school, saw it as his true home, and there are legends about lost relics of the founders. Ravenclaw's diadem, missing for centuries, would be exactly the kind of artifact Voldemort would want to corrupt into a Horcrux. But infiltrating Hogwarts in 1997 is nearly suicidal. The castle has become a fortress of darkness. Umbridge was removed when Voldemort took complete control, replaced by a Death Eater named Corbin Yaxley as headmaster. The Carrow twins, Electo and Amicus, teach what they call defense against the dark arts and Muggle studies. But it's really just indoctrination and torture. Students learn to cast unforgivable curses on each other. Muggle-born students are used as practice targets. Blood status determines everything. The student body has changed dramatically. Many families fled Britain, taking their children with them. Those who remain are mostly purebloods or those too poor to escape. The castle is half empty, echoing with the ghosts of better times. The House Point hourglasses are shattered. The Great Hall's enchanted ceiling shows permanent storm clouds. The portraits on the walls whisper warnings. Even the castle itself seems to mourn what it's become. But there's still resistance. Neville Longbottom has become the unlikely leader of a student rebellion. The shy, forgetful boy who could never get anything right has transformed into someone fierce and determined. His face is scarred from repeated Cruciatus curses used as punishment. His nose has been broken and healed wrong. He limps from a hex that was never properly treated, but his spirit is unbreakable. Neville leads a group called the Resistance, a name simpler and more direct than Dumbledore's army. They meet in the Room of Requirement, which has become a sanctuary, a place where the castle's ancient magic still protects students from the Death Eater professors. The room provides food, healing supplies, and shelter for those who would otherwise be tortured or killed. Some students haven't left the room in months, hiding from the Carrows, surviving in this pocket of safety within a school that's become hell. Luna Lovegood is part of the Resistance. She's thinner than she should be, her usual dreamy expression hardened by the realities of living under tyranny. But she still wears her radish earrings, still believes in the impossible, still finds beauty in dark places. She tells Neville stories about creatures that feed on despair, and how hope starves them. She paints murals on the Room of Requirements walls, images of friends who died or disappeared. It's her way of keeping their memories alive. When Ron and Hermione infiltrate Hogwarts, they use the secret passage from the Hog's Head pub, the same one that will be used in the original timeline. Aberforth Dumbledore, Albus's brother, runs the pub and is sympathetic to their cause. He's bitter about his brother's death, angry at how the wizarding world squandered Albus's sacrifice, but he helps them anyway. The passage leads directly to the Room of Requirement. The reunion between Ron, Hermione, and Neville is emotional. They've all been fighting their own battles, all lost so much. Neville breaks down when he sees Ron, seeing in him the brother he lost when Ginny died, seeing the friend who was Harry. They hold each other and weep for everything that's gone wrong. Neville tells them about life in Hogwarts under Death Eater control. He tells them about Seamus Finnegan, who tried to fight back and was crucioed until his mind broke. About Lavender Brown, who was killed by Fenrir Greyback when she tried to help a younger student. About Dean Thomas, who managed to escape and is fighting with a resistance cell in London. About Colin Creevey, who was only 15 when the Carrows made an example of him in front of the whole school. He tells them about the students who turned, who became junior Death Eaters, who betray their classmates for favor and safety. Draco Malfoy isn't among them, surprisingly. The Malfoy heir is trapped in a nightmare of his own, forced to serve Voldemort but clearly broken by it, haunted and hollow. He doesn't participate in the torture, but he doesn't stop it either. He's a ghost drifting through the halls, but Neville also tells them about moments of defiance, about the first years who wrote messages on the walls in disappearing ink, messages like Dumbledore's army still recruiting, and you can't break us all, about the way students sabotage lessons, pretending incompetence, making the Death Eaters' jobs harder, about the portraits who refuse to help the Carrows, who go missing from their frames or give false information. The castle itself resists, stairs leading to dead ends for Death Eaters, doors locking at opportune moments. And Neville tells them about the ghost. Students claim to see Ginny Weasley walking the corridors. She appears as she was at 11 years old, her red hair bright even as a specter, her face pale and sad. She's been seen near the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, in the girls' bathroom where Moaning Myrtle weeps, standing in places where students are about to be in danger, as if trying to warn them. Some think it's mass hallucination, grief-induced visions, but too many people have seen her. Luna believes she's real, that Ginny's death in the chamber was so traumatic it bound her spirit to the school. Ron can barely process this information. His sister, the girl he failed to save, now a ghost haunting the school. He asks if Neville has seen her. Neville nods. He saw her once standing at the end of a corridor, and she mouthed the word "run" just before the Carrows came around the corner. He ran and it saved him from a brutal punishment. He doesn't know if she's real, but he chooses to believe his sister is still protecting people. Hermione is more skeptical, but doesn't voice it. Ghost or hallucination, if the idea of Ginny watching over them gives people hope, that's valuable, and she's learned not to dismiss anything in the magical world, no matter how impossible it seems. They explain their mission to Neville and Luna. They're looking for Ravenclaw's diadem. It's a Horcrux that might be hidden somewhere in Hogwarts. Luna's eyes light up at the mention of the diadem. She knows the story, of course. Her mother studied Ravenclaw's history obsessively. The diadem was lost centuries ago, supposedly granting wisdom to the wearer, but it drove Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter to madness and death. If Voldemort found it and turned it into a Horcrux, it would be the ultimate perversion of knowledge and wisdom. Luna leads them to the Ravenclaw common room, sneaking through the castle under cover of night and disillusionment charms. The entrance is a door with an enchanted knocker in the shape of an eagle. It asks a riddle. What came first, the phoenix or the flame? Luna answers, a circle has no beginning, and the door opens. The common room is almost empty. Most Ravenclaw students are either in the Room of Requirement or too scared to socialize. They search for clues about the diadem. Luna shows them a statue of Rowena Ravenclaw wearing the diadem, giving them an idea of what it looks like. A delicate silver circlet with a blue gem, inscribed with Ravenclaw's famous quote, "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure." But where would Voldemort hide it? Hermione thinks it through. He came to Hogwarts to ask Dumbledore for the defense against the dark arts teaching position, years ago, when he was already deeply into dark magic. Dumbledore refused him. Voldemort would have hidden the Horcrux then, somewhere he thought no one else knew about, somewhere meaningful to him. The Room of Requirement, specifically the version of the room that becomes a storage place for hidden objects. Thousands of students over thousands of years have hidden things there. It's the perfect place to conceal something you never want found, hidden among an infinity of other forgotten objects. They return to the Room of Requirement and request it to show them the place where everything is hidden. The room transforms. Instead of the cozy sanctuary where the resistance lives, it becomes a vast cathedral of junk. Mountains of objects pile to the ceiling. Books, broken wands, old furniture, potion bottles, strange magical devices. Everything anyone ever hid in Hogwarts sits in massive heaps. The search is overwhelming. It could take years to sort through everything. But Luna has an idea. She believes objects retain emotional echoes, especially dark objects. The diadem is a Horcrux, saturated with murder and dark magic. If they quiet their minds and feel rather than look, they might sense it. They spread out, moving through the labyrinth of hidden things. Ron trips over a broken vanishing cabinet, the same one that in another timeline Draco Malfoy would repair to let Death Eaters into Hogwarts. Hermione finds entire shelves of confiscated love potions and joke items from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, artifacts of a happier time. Luna discovers a wall of portraits, paintings that were damaged or deemed inappropriate, watching them with silent, painted eyes. Hours pass. They're exhausted, covered in dust, beginning to lose hope, and then Luna stops. She's standing before a warped wooden cabinet, and on top of it, almost casually placed, is a stone bust wearing a ratty old wig and a delicate silver diadem. She can feel the wrongness radiating from it, the way it seems to pull at something inside her mind, promising knowledge and power. Hermione approaches carefully. Even from a distance, she can feel the Horcrux's malevolent presence. It's whispering, the way the locket Horcrux whispered in the original timeline, offering secrets, offering wisdom, offering everything you could want if you just put it on. She resists the temptation. They've come too far to be corrupted now. Ron takes out one of their precious basilisk fangs. They have only 2 left, carefully preserved, one of the few substances that can destroy a Horcrux. Hermione lifts the diadem with a levitation charm, not wanting to touch it. She places it on the ground. Ron raises the fang, but before he can strike, the door to the Room of Requirement bursts open. Death Eaters pour in, led by Electo Caro. Someone betrayed them. Someone told the Death Eaters that intruders were in the castle, that they were in the Room of Hidden Things. The trap has sprung. Spells fly immediately. Ron drops the fang and draws his wand, throwing up a shield charm that barely stops a killing curse. Hermione fires stunners rapid fire, her technique polished by years of guerrilla warfare. Luna uses her knowledge of obscure magic, casting creatures made of light that confuse and distract their attackers. Neville, who followed them to provide backup, emerges from behind a pile of furniture and starts firing curses with frightening competence. The battle rages through the mountains of hidden objects. Spells ignite centuries-old furniture. Potion bottles explode, releasing clouds of various effects. A fiendfire curse cast by Amicus Caro, who just arrived, begins spreading through the room, the cursed fire taking the shape of enormous serpents and birds of prey, consuming everything it touches. The fiendfire is uncontrolled and incredibly dangerous. Even the Death Eaters realize the mistake, trying to contain it, but it's already too large. The cursed fire spreads rapidly, feeding on the magical objects growing stronger. The Room of Requirement begins to collapse, unable to contain the destructive force. In the chaos, Ron grabs the diadem. It burns his hand even through magical protections, but he holds it. Hermione retrieves the fallen basilisk fang. They need to destroy it now, before they're consumed by fiendfire or captured by Death Eaters. Ron drops the diadem and Hermione drives the fang through it. The Horcrux's death is spectacular. It screams with Voldemort's voice, mixed with Rowena Ravenclaw's anguished cry from when her daughter stole the diadem a millennium ago. Dark magic explodes outward, creating a shockwave that knocks everyone back. The diadem melts, its silver running like water, the blue gem cracking into fragments. The piece of Voldemort's soul inside howls as it's destroyed, a sound of pure agony that echoes through the collapsing room. The fiend fire, as if enraged by the Horcrux's destruction, surges toward them. They run, grabbing Luna and Neville, sprinting through the maze of burning objects. The exit is barely visible through smoke and flames. Death Eaters are fleeing too, abandoning the fight in face of the fire that will kill them just as readily. They burst through the door into the regular room of requirement where other resistance students are gathered. Hermione seals the door behind them, but they can hear the fiend fire raging on the other side. The room is protecting them, but barely. They need to evacuate. Neville makes the decision. They can't hide anymore. The Death Eaters know about the room of requirement now. The sanctuary is compromised. He tells everyone to prepare for evacuation, to grab whatever they can carry. They'll scatter, some fleeing Hogwarts entirely, others joining the Order of the Phoenix to continue fighting. But then Neville doubles over in pain. His face contorts, and when he speaks, it's not his voice. The words are forced out, compelled by magic he can't control. He tells the Death Eaters gathering outside exactly where they are, how many students are in the room, what defenses they have. He's betraying them, and he's aware of it, tears streaming down his face as his mouth moves against his will. Hermione realizes immediately what's happened. The Imperious Curse, or something like it, buried deep in Neville's mind. She begins casting diagnostic spells, her hands shaking. This is incredibly complex dark magic, layered with protections and triggers. Breaking it could kill Neville or damage his mind permanently. Ron guards the door as Death Eaters begin attacking it. His shield charms hold, but barely. Other resistance members join him, adding their magic to the defenses. Luna holds Neville as he writhes, still speaking information he doesn't want to reveal. His body and mind in rebellion against each other. Hermione works frantically. She identifies the compulsion curse's structure. It's Voldemort's work, elegant and cruel, designed to be nearly impossible to remove. But she's Hermione Granger, and impossible has never stopped her before. She begins the counter curse, a delicate process of unweaving the dark magic one thread at a time. The door splinters. Death Eaters are breaking through. Ron and the students are running out of magic, their shields weakening. They need more time, just a few more minutes. And then a voice echoes through the room, a young girl's voice that shouldn't exist. "Hold on, help is coming," students gasp. Some cry out, because standing in the center of the room, translucent and glowing faintly, is Ginny Weasley, the ghost that everyone whispered about, now manifesting clearly for the first time. She looks at Ron, and there's such sadness in her spectral eyes. She speaks again. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough." "But you are." "Hold on." Whether she's real or a mass hallucination created by their desperate hope doesn't matter. The appearance of Ginny's ghost galvanizes the students. They fight with renewed strength, pushing back against the Death Eaters with everything they have. Ron sobs as he casts spell after spell, seeing his sister, who he failed, who somehow came back to help them. Hermione completes the counter curse. The compulsion breaks with an almost audible snap. Neville gasps, his mind his own again, but the backlash is severe. He collapses, blood trickling from his nose and ears, his brain damaged by the violent removal of the curse. Luna catches him, cradling his head, begging him to stay with them. The door explodes inward. Death Eaters flood in. The Battle of Hogwarts has truly begun, but 2 years earlier than history intended, and under far worse circumstances. The Order of the Phoenix arrives through various secret passages, having been alerted by Aberforth that the situation had gone critical. Kingsley Shacklebolt, Remus Lupin, Bill Weasley, and dozens of other Order members appear, joining the students in desperate defense. The battle spreads throughout Hogwarts. Spells shatter windows and crack stone walls. The castle itself seems to be fighting, staircases moving to aid defenders, suits of armor animating to attack Death Eaters, doors locking to trap enemies. But the corruption Voldemort has inflicted on Hogwarts over the past year has weakened its defenses. Some of the castle's magic turns against the defenders instead, confused and corrupted. In the Great Hall, Remus Lupin duels 3 Death Eaters simultaneously. His wolf-like reflexes and years of fighting dark creatures make him formidable. But he's outnumbered, exhausted, fighting in a war he thought they'd lost. A killing curse catches him in the chest. He falls dead before he hits the ground, another casualty in a battle that should never have happened this way. Bill Weasley fights like a man possessed, knowing his youngest sister died in this castle, knowing his family was destroyed by what happened here. He's a brilliant duelist, trained in curse-breaking and combat magic. He takes down Death Eater after Death Eater, but there are so many. He's eventually cornered by Fenrir Greyback, the werewolf who in another timeline would have scarred him. In this timeline, Greyback kills him, tearing him apart in his half-transformed state. The casualties mount on both sides. Students die, some barely teenagers killed by killing curses or caught in crossfire. Death Eaters fall to the combined magic of defenders who have nothing left to lose. The castle is being torn apart, centuries of magical architecture crumbling under the assault. And then Voldemort himself arrives. He apparates directly into the Great Hall, his magic so powerful that the anti-apparition wards mean nothing to him. His presence is overwhelming, an aura of dark power that makes even his own Death Eaters step back in fear. He surveys the battle with cold red eyes and speaks a single word. Enough! Magic radiates outward from him, a wave of force that throws everyone to the ground. Spells fizzle out, wands fly from hands. In an instant, the Dark Lord has subdued the entire battlefield through sheer power. He walks slowly through the Great Hall, past the frozen defenders, past his kneeling Death Eaters, his gaze searching for something specific. He finds Ron and Hermione among the fallen, recognizes them from their interference with his Horcruxes. He knows they destroyed the cup and the diadem, knows they're hunting the pieces of his soul. He's furious but also curious. How did two barely trained students accomplish what even Dumbledore struggled to do? Voldemort uses legilimency on Hermione, invading her mind with brutal force. She tries to resist, but she's exhausted. Her occlumency barriers shattered. He sees her memories. He sees Dumbledore's research into Horcruxes, sees their desperate hunt, sees the moment they destroyed each one. And he sees something else, something that confuses him. Flashes of another timeline, memories that don't fit. Images of a world where things went differently. He pulls out of her mind, disturbed. Hermione collapses, blood running from her nose, her mind violated and damaged. Voldemort realizes she used time magic, sees the damaged time turner still tucked in her robes. He understands that she changed something fundamental, though the specifics are unclear, even to her fractured memories. The Dark Lord makes a decision. He will not kill them, not yet. He wants to understand what they did, how they manipulated time, what else they might know. He orders them imprisoned, along with all the captured students and Order members. Hogwarts will become a prison, and he will extract every secret from their minds before they die. As Death Eaters drag the wounded away, as Hogwarts burns and bleeds from this battle it never should have fought, Ron manages to look at Hermione. They've destroyed 4 Horcruxes, ring, diary, cup, diadem. But Dumbledore suspected there were more, possibly 6 or even 7 total. Even if they die here, even if they failed, they've weakened Voldemort significantly. Maybe that will be enough. Maybe someone else will finish what they started. They're thrown into the dungeons beneath Hogwarts, the same dungeons where potions classes were once held, now converted into cells. Neville is there, unconscious and possibly dying from the brain damage caused by breaking the compulsion curse. Luna is there, humming softly to herself despite everything, finding some inner peace even in hell. Other students and Order members fill the other cells, all wounded, all hopeless. Days pass in the darkness. Death Eaters interrogate prisoners regularly, using Cruciatus curses and legilimency to extract information. Many break, telling everything they know about Order safe houses, about resistance cells, about anyone who helped them. The information is used to crush what remains of the opposition. Resistance groups across Britain are raided. Families are arrested. The last embers of hope are being systematically extinguished. Hermione, during one particularly brutal interrogation session, is forced to relive her memories for Bellatrix Lestrange, who wants to understand how they broke into her vault. Bellatrix is fascinated by the audacity of it, almost admiring even as she tortures Hermione for the insult. The pain is excruciating, but Hermione holds on to one secret. She never reveals the time turner, using occlumency techniques Dumbledore taught her to wall off that memory, hiding it even as everything else is stripped away. Ron is interrogated by Voldemort himself. The Dark Lord is particularly interested in Ron because of his connection to Harry Potter, the boy who somehow mattered, even though he's dead. Voldemort wants to understand the prophecy, wants to know if there's any threat remaining. Ron, under torture, tells him about the prophecy, about how it could have referred to Neville as well. This information alarms Voldemort. If the prophecy had alternates, if Neville Longbottom could potentially be a threat, that's a problem. Voldemort goes to Neville's cell. The boy is barely conscious, his mind damaged, barely able to speak. The Dark Lord considers killing him, eliminating any possible fulfillment of the prophecy. But he's curious about the compulsion curse, about how it was broken. He examines Neville's mind with legitimacy and finds the shattered remains of his own curse work, broken by Hermione's counter-magic. And in those shattered remains, in the fragments of Neville's fractured memories, Voldemort finds something interesting. Images of Neville in the graveyard, of the resurrection ritual, of the moment Neville's blood was taken. These are real memories, not implanted, but they conflict with Voldemort's own recollection. He remembers using Neville for the ritual, but the memories are somehow wrong, like viewing them through distorted glass. Voldemort realizes that time was indeed changed, that reality was rewritten, and fragments of the original timeline are still embedded in people's minds. He becomes obsessed with understanding this. If time can be changed once, it can be changed again. If there's a timeline where he lost, he needs to ensure it never comes to pass. He orders the time turner brought to him from Hermione's possessions, but when the Death Eaters retrieve it, they find it's not just damaged, it's destroyed beyond repair. The magic that powered it burned out during Hermione's desperate use, leaving only a broken artifact. Voldemort is furious. He could have used it, could have gone back and prevented his own defeat in ways no one could have stopped. The opportunity is gone, the device destroyed. In his rage, Voldemort orders Hermione brought before him. He will punish her for destroying such a valuable artifact, for daring to manipulate time itself. But as Bellatrix drags Hermione to the Great Hall where Voldemort holds court, something unexpected happens. The ghost of Ginny Weasley appears again. She manifests directly in front of Bellatrix, her spectral form glowing brighter than ever before, and she screams. It's not a sound that living people should be able to make. A shriek of pure anguish and rage that echoes through the corridor. Bellatrix, startled, stumbles backward. Hermione, seeing her chance, wrenches free and runs. Alarms sound. Death Eaters pursue. Hermione runs through the damaged castle, desperately seeking escape. She knows the castle well, knows secret passages and hidden rooms. She makes it to the 7th floor, to where the Room of Requirement should be. But that part of the castle is destroyed, gutted by the fiend fire that still burns in some sealed sections. She's cornered. Death Eaters close in from every direction. She's unarmed, wandless, exhausted. This is how she dies, she realizes. Alone in a corridor of Hogwarts, far from home, having failed to stop Voldemort. At least she tried. At least she fought. But then the world lurches. Reality shifts, blurs, reorganizes itself. Hermione feels the sensation of time magic, but she's not causing it. Someone else is, something else. The corridor around her begins to change. The damage repairing itself, the darkness lifting. The Death Eaters pursuing her flicker, become translucent, vanish like ghosts themselves. Hermione collapses as the timeline restructures. She's experiencing what everyone experienced when she used the time turner, but from the outside, aware of the changes. She realizes what's happening. The time turner wasn't completely destroyed. Fragment of its magic remained, carried in her. And in this moment of absolute despair, in this moment where all hope was lost, that magic activated one final time. The world dissolves and reforms. When Hermione opens her eyes, she's lying on cold stone in the Chamber of Secrets. Not the current chamber, but the chamber from years ago. From 1993. She's been thrown further back than before, to the moment before Harry descended, to when she could make a real difference. She sees Harry, 12 years old, standing at the entrance to the chamber with Ron. She sees herself younger, still petrified in the hospital wing, in a different part of the castle. This is a true second chance, a moment before everything went wrong. But she's not physical, she realizes. She's ghost-like, an echo of the future, able to see but barely able to interact. She tries to speak, to warn Harry, but her voice is barely a whisper. She tries to touch him, to stop him, but her hand passes through him like smoke. She's a phantom from a future that hasn't happened yet, and she's almost powerless to change anything. Almost. She focuses everything she has, every bit of will and magic and desperate love for her friends, into one action. She pushes Fawkes. The Phoenix is about to fly down to the chamber to save Harry, but he's hesitating, unsure. Hermione's spectral presence, invisible to human eyes but perhaps visible to a magical creature, as ancient and wise as a phoenix, pushes Fawkes forward. She urges him down into the darkness where Harry will need him. Fawkes flies. The timeline holds. And Hermione, having done all she can, feels herself dissolving. The fragment of time magic that brought her here is exhausted, spent. She has no idea if she succeeded, if her tiny push made the difference. She can only hope. As she fades, she sees one more thing. The ghost of Ginny Weasley standing beside her, smiling. Not the sad, haunted ghost from the dark timeline, but a peaceful spirit, no longer bound by tragedy. Ginny speaks, her voice clear. "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for saving all of us." And then both ghosts fade away, returning to timelines where they don't need to exist. Hermione wakes up in the hospital wing of Hogwarts. It's 1998, the original timeline, everything restored. The Battle of Hogwarts just ended, but the right way, with Harry's victory. She's surrounded by friends, all alive, all safe. Harry is there, smiling despite his exhaustion. Ron is there, whole and happy. And Ginny is there, alive and beautiful and real. Not a ghost, but a living 17-year-old girl. They tell Hermione she was hit by a curse during the battle, that she's been unconscious for hours. They're worried about her, but she's okay. They won. Voldemort is dead, truly dead this time. All Horcruxes destroyed and his body killed. The war is over. Hermione wants to tell them everything. She wants to explain about the dark timeline, about how close they came to losing, about the years of suffering that were erased. But she sees their happy, relieved faces, and she knows she can't. That burden is hers alone to carry. Some sacrifices are meant to be invisible. She asks them one question. "Did Fawkes save you in the Chamber of Secrets, Harry? Back in second year?" Harry looks confused at the random question, but nods. "Yeah, arrived just in time. Don't know what made him come, but he did." "Why?" Hermione just smiles. "No reason. Just making sure everything happened the way it was supposed to." Later, when she's alone, Hermione allows herself to cry. She cries for the version of Ron who lost everything. She cries for the version of Neville whose mind was shattered. She cries for all the people who died in a timeline that no longer exists, but was very real to her. She cries for Luna, for Bill, for Remus, for everyone who suffered in a world where Harry Potter died at 12 years old. She visits Dumbledore's portrait eventually, weeks after the battle. The painted headmaster looks at her with his characteristic twinkling eyes, but there's a depth of understanding there that wasn't present before. "You carry a heavy burden, Miss Granger," he says softly. "A burden that no one else can see or understand. I am sorry for that. You know," she says, "it's not a question." Dumbledore inclines his head. "I suspect something occurred beyond the normal flow of time. The portrait magic is sensitive to such things. But I do not know the details, and perhaps that is best. Some knowledge is too terrible to share," Hermione agrees. She never tells the full story to anyone who lived through it. But years later, decades later, when she's much older, and Harry's children are grown, she tells the tale to one person. Harry's grandson, Albus Severus Potter, now working as an unspeakable in the Department of Mysteries, specializing in temporal magic. He needs to understand the dangers of time manipulation, needs to know that some things, once changed, ripple out in ways you can't predict or control. She tells him everything. The death of Harry in the chamber, the rise of Voldemort, the dark years, the desperate fight, the loss and suffering. She tells him about the version of Ron who became a warrior out of grief, about Neville who was broken and used, about Ginny who died and became a ghost. She tells him about using the time turner, about making the smallest change that rewrote everything. Albus listens, pale and shaken. When she finishes, he asks the question she's been asking herself for years. Was it real? Did that timeline actually happen? Or was it just a potential that you prevented? Hermione considers this. Both, she finally answers. In the moment it existed, it was absolutely real. People lived and died, suffered and fought. But when time was corrected, it became a road not taken. A future that didn't come to pass. Does that make it less real? I don't know. The scars I carry from it are real enough. She shows him something then, something she's never shown anyone. A small scar on her wrist shaped like a lightning bolt. I got this from a curse in the battle at Hogwarts, the Dark Timeline battle. When reality reset, all the wounds should have disappeared. But this one remained. I think it's because I was the one who changed time, so I'm outside the normal rules. This scar is proof that it happened, that it was real, even though no one else remembers. Albus looks at the scar with awe and horror, physical evidence of an erased timeline, a mark that shouldn't exist. What do you want me to do with this information? He asks. Hermione's answer is simple. Keep time magic locked away. No matter how tempting it is, no matter what good you think you can do, don't use it. The price is always higher than you expect. I saved my friends, saved the world, but I had to live through years of darkness to do it. I remember things that make me wake up screaming. That's the cost of manipulating time. Albus promises to honor her warning. The story becomes a classified file in the Department of Mysteries, labeled the Unraveled Timeline, known only to a few. It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of temporal magic, about the importance of accepting the present, even when the past seems like it could be improved. As for Hermione, she lives a long and happy life in the restored timeline. She works at the Ministry, fights for house elf rights and muggle-born equality, marries Ron, raises children. But there are nights when she wakes from nightmares about the dark timeline, when she can still feel the torture curses, when she sees her friends dying over and over. Ron holds her on those nights, not understanding why she's so haunted, but loving her through it anyway. She makes a promise to herself. She will live well, will appreciate every moment with the people she saved, will never take for granted the peace they have, because she knows, in a way no one else does, how easily it could have all gone wrong. How one boy's death in a chamber beneath a school could have doomed an entire world. How the smallest moments matter more than anyone realizes. And sometimes, on quiet nights, she thinks she sees a flicker of red hair in shadows, a ghost that shouldn't exist in this timeline. She thinks she sees Ginny's spirit, even though Ginny is alive and well. Maybe it's her imagination, or maybe it's an echo from the other timeline. A reminder of what was and what could have been. Either way, Hermione takes comfort in it. A reminder that some people watch over us, even from timelines that never fully existed, even from futures we managed to prevent. The wizarding world never knows how close it came to eternal darkness. They never know that their happy ending was earned through a sacrifice most can't comprehend, through years of suffering that were erased but not unfelt. They live in peace in light, unaware of the shadow timeline that haunts one woman's dreams. And perhaps that's how it should be. The burden of knowledge, the weight of remembering what everyone else forgot. That's Hermione's sacrifice. She lived through the worst possible timeline and then unmade it, saving everyone at the cost of carrying those memories forever. Some heroes are celebrated with statues and songs. Others are known only to themselves, fighting wars in timelines that technically never happened, bearing scars from battles that officially never were. In the end, the question, what if Harry Potter died in the Chamber of Secrets, has only one answer that matters. Everything would have been lost. But because one girl was brave enough to break time itself, because one friend loved her companions enough to risk everything, that dark future remained only a possibility, a nightmare that never quite became real. And sometimes that's what heroism looks like. Not glory and recognition, but quiet sacrifice, invisible wounds, and the determination to bear the unbearable so that others don't have to. The story ends where it began, in a chamber beneath a school, where a 12-year-old boy either lives or dies, where a phoenix either arrives in time or doesn't, where the whole future pivots on a moment so small that no one notices its importance until it's almost too late. In one timeline, Harry Potter dies and darkness consumes the world. In another, he lives and becomes the hero everyone needed him to be. The difference between these timelines is measured in seconds, in a phoenix's flight, in one girl's desperate intervention across the barriers of time itself. And that makes all the difference in the world.